What's going on, Bucs fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Parlay podcast here at the Sick Podcast Network. I'm JC Allen, as always, your host. We got a good show for you today. I don't know how good, considering everything the Bucs are going through. We'll see if it will be good this weekend, but we've got a pretty good show for you today. We're going to touch on that awful loss on Thursday. Not too much, though, but we'll definitely touch on that. But more the aftermath. Todd Bowles going on a profanity-laden tirade after that. Baker Mayfield saying the blame should be on him, not on the defense. So we'll see. Do you agree with that? We'll get my takes and our guests' thoughts on it as well. Where the Bucs need to go. Is it time to move on from Todd? Even if they come back and win the division, what do they need to do? It's an interesting take there because of the success he's had even with these lulls. And then obviously we'll get into the Panthers, Anthony Walker, will he be playing? What can he do? JPP, Benjamin Morrison, all that and more with our special guest. You'll find out who that is right after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back to the other side here on the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC Allen. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in to another episode. Do me a favor, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on notification button. If you're watching on Twitter, drop a comment. Come on over, visit us on YouTube if you want, or drop your comments at the very least. We'll definitely get to those down there in the comment section with our guests here in a minute. And if you're listening on the podcast form afterwards, an audio version, appreciate you guys and catching the replays. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Come check us out live sometime. With that being said, the Bucs are in a perilous place right now. They've got a decision to make as a team, and that is, are they going to nut up or are they going to shut up? Because the last couple of weeks, they really could have been in a much better situation, a much better place had they not dropped the bag and, fumbled the bag, I should say, with these last two games against the Saints and the Falcons. They win those two games, and everything's looking a little different right now. You're 9-5, 3 games left. You've already locked up the division. You look to be in a much better place, but that didn't happen. And there's been some fallout and some situation where the Bucs still control their own destiny thanks to the Saints in no part. But it's going to be difficult. And let's get into that. Let's break that down with our special guest. You guys know him as Tampa Tones over on the X. He is the host of the Buccaneers podcast and more. And he's our special guest today, friend of the program. He's been on a few times. We welcome him back with open arms here, rocking the festive elf hat. We love that as well. What's going on, Tones?
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Thanks very much for having me, JC. And right when you think the Bucs lose and it stings and they're down and out, next thing you know, a couple of things happen and the Bucs are right back in the thick of things. So it seems like a yearly routine at this point where disappointment by a Bucs loss, but then they get some help, and next thing you know, they control their own destiny again.
Yeah, it's thankfully for the Saints beating the Panthers. The Saints swept the Panthers this year, in fact. Good for them. Tyler Shuck looking like he might be someone to actually build with, and I'm not saying a Super Bowl team or a competitor with, but someone to build with over the next 2 years while you kind of get the rest of that roster. And finally, it looks like eat that, as the Bucs thought they had a bad credit card to slip to eat. Whew, the one's coming for the Saints. It makes Jason Light laugh because it's coming soon, and they've got no chance because they're just devoid of talent on both sides of the ball. And they're still trading Trav picks this offseason like idiots.
Yeah, why not rack up the bills? It's the holiday season, right? Yeah, we'll just dead cap money here, dead cap money there. Why not? Sure. And next thing you know, the Saints are in cap purgatory for years to come. See,
push it to January. We'll worry about it then. But no, I mean, the Bucs certainly helped them out after the Bucs couldn't handle their own business against the Saints, and obviously dropping Thursday's game against the Falcons put them in more perilous situation. If not for the Saints and their upset win over the Panthers, but. I mean, what's to say about that game that hasn't already been said? Both games were just embarrassing and kind of just, not Buccaneer football, to say the least. I don't want to dwell too long on Thursday night's loss, but like in the moment, after you had some time to think about it, after Sunday when, the Saints beat the Panthers, where was your head during all those moments? And where's your head now as far as, racking your mind around what happened on Thursday night?
Flipping the corner a little bit now after Sunday, but before Sunday, I think I was reaching DEFCON 1 in level of, all right, we're in trouble here, because you understand for a team to have one of those games, perhaps, right? Lay a clunker down on the line like we did against New Orleans, and you figure the team will bounce back, and they can't do it twice in a row, right? At home, twice in a row, the Saints and Falcons, inferior opponents this year, and then they come out and they kind of one up the Saints loss, right? They're like, hold my beers, Saints loss.
Right.
We're going to lose even worse against Atlanta. And I think it was just the fact of Atlanta is not even the fact you lost. It's how you lost, right? You're up multiple touchdowns late in the game. They don't get either 2-point conversion. You get the ball back with about 2.5 minutes left, missing wide open receivers. It was just 2 fumble recoveries that were pretty much gifted to you. And none of that went your way. And then you lose the game. Todd Bowles has an outburst. I was feeling like Todd Bowles after that game because, and I know we'll get into it, but it's hard to keep piling on coaching when you can make 1 or 2 plays as a player throughout that Atlanta game and you win the football game. It's as simple as that. You recover one of those fumbles, you win the game. You play the right defense accordingly, you win the game. So it's not necessarily that the Bucs lost to the Saints or Falcons. It's that you piled up those 2 losses. And if you won even one of those games, you could win as ugly as can be. And this division is pretty much gift wrapped at your front door right now. Now it's still in your destiny, but you need a little more work to do. Just unlike this Buccaneers team to come out and almost give a lifeless effort with 10 minutes left to go in the football game, right? That's something we haven't really seen with this Bucs team since the Todd Bowles era. Sure, they lose games. Sure, sometimes they lose games bad, but that fourth quarter was just an abomination of events that, were terrible.
It was not good. And you know what it does? These last 2 games specifically taint their early season victories. They taint them. Those wins against the Seahawks, those wins against the Texans, those wins against, the Jets and the Falcons early on, they mean nothing. They mean nothing because is that an indication of who this team is? No. That team, and the thing we were saying is, it shows resiliency. I asked Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles, what is the identity of this team? What is the identity? Resiliency is what they said. Okay, well, you showed that resiliency early on in the season, and you won. You haven't showed it now. What's different? Like, what is the big difference between the beginning of the season and later in the season? And again, by the way, it's 2 inferior opponents that you're doing it to. In the last 2 losses. So, that mental toughness, that resiliency that they displayed earlier on in the season, it looked great. It looked awesome. It had them top 5 in the power rankings, but now where is that? Where's that same, finish game, that killer instinct that was finish games out? Yeah, I go like, what was it, week 5 or whatever, when Graham Barton was like, is this what it feels like to not have to close the game out in the last minute? When they I forget who they beat there, but
San Fran, I believe.
Yeah, and now it's going the opposite way, and I think that is more worrisome than anything else. And they're starting to get players back, which is certainly going to help as they move forward.
I think another problem is, JC, it's not like one unit is solely at fault either, right? It's not like, the offense is going to come around or the defense or the special teams. It's like these have been reoccurring problems on all fronts. Baker has been missing throws. The defense has been defensing, apparently. I'm not sure what's going on. And then
or not defensing.
I should have said not defensing. And then the special teams, I get
nothing special about it, bro.
No, the return game, every single game, and we finally started doing touchbacks this past week. It's like, good for you. You guys finally learned how to do a touchback. But at day's end, it's like, my Lord, how the heck do we end up with the ball at the 25-yard line seemingly every time, and then the opponents are getting it at the 35 or better? That's huge this day and age, because if you're giving the team the ball time in and time out at the 35, all they need is 2 passes, and next thing you know, they're in range for 3.
Field goal range, right? Exactly. It's like 60-yarder is nothing nowadays. You got Cam Little out here banging 70 yards this preseason, getting records of 68 yards. Chase McLaughlin in Tampa and one of the worst kickers stadiums for a kicker because of the way the wind comes in, hits a 65-yarder outside. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's been really difficult too. And, thankfully they have a culture. And I asked Baker about that yesterday. How do you guys keep it from pointing fingers? Because it has been special teams. Early on in the season, it's been special teams. Later, it's been special teams. It's been defense, giving up all these points and not being able to get a pass rush with 4 and making mistakes. And it's been different players. Todd's right. And we'll get into that because it's been different people every time. You remember the Benjamin Morrison one. Yaya Diaby's chasing, I forget who chasing someone down the field. I forget what game that was. My memory shot. But, Benjamin Morrison just drifting in coverage, not sticking with his man. And then you have Kendall Vildor, who's playing for Bijan. And I get it, it's Bijan Robinson. But, not playing to the sticks. And it's been different players every week that have seemingly been culprits and have allowed big plays. So Savassi Dennis has certainly been one that's happened to a couple times. But, so it's at this point in time, like they need to figure it out, whatever it is that they need to be doing, because pointing the fingers isn't going to work at each other. And again, they're not going to be doing that in this locker room, according to the coaching staff and the players, but someone needs to take accountability. And I think that was the message after the game from Todd Bowles, is that, hey, you need to take a look at yourself in the mirror, he said. Baker said it too. We all have to take accountability. Mike Evans talked about it yesterday, talking about it's on the offense. We have to take accountability and close those drives out and hit those. So that's the biggest thing. Are they going to wake up in 1 week? If this has been going on now for 5, 6 weeks now, 7 weeks now. And, what's the difference between previous years and this year? Like why are we still here? Not mid-season slump anymore, Tones. We're end of season slump. We're in December slumps. That's when you had to turn it around. And not to say that they've won perfect beautifully, but they've at least figured it out to win the games they needed to in the last couple of years in December to get there. It seems like this year it's just kind of extended its way into December late.
And when you're playing bad, that's when you're supposed to be able to rely on a couple of playmakers at least to say, hey, there's some light here, right? This guy could do this or this guy could do this. Well, the elite defenders that the Buccaneers once had are not making those elite plays. And I know Levante David's getting older. He had a better second half, but that first half in that Atlanta game was hard to watch. He was constantly getting beat in the ground game, not to his spot. And then Antoine Winfield Jr., he's not taking over games like he once was, and he's still playing good, but not great. And we paid him to be great, and we were used to the greatness with him from 2020 to 2023. I get he was banged up last season, but how many times over the course of 2020 to 2023 did he save a game himself? Probably at least 5, 6, 7 times alone. This year, last year, I don't think we've seen one combined game-saving play from him. At the beginning of the year, he had a couple that were like, all right, that's shades of Antoine Winfield Jr. I'm not sure.
The Saints game, he was all over the place, but that wasn't like you weren't saving the game. You weren't being the hero of the game and making that play. I know what you're talking about, and it hasn't been there. And Todd was asked about that this week, and he said, yeah, the splash plays aren't there, but I've got no issues with what he's doing. He said he's having a babysit for some of the other people. And I mean, you put that in a context, you're thinking, Jacob Parrish, just kind of having to have his back as a rookie, and maybe at some times when Benjamin Morrison's out there, although Benjamin Morrison's playing on the opposite side most of the time. So it's more probably about Parrish, but yeah, I'm with you right there. Where are the splash plays, and that's what I think they've been missing. And that's the craziest thing, Tones, because we talked about this after the bye, like the defense won that game against New Orleans. And the rage was like, the defense is legit. They're coming on. Like, they're going to get Reddick back. And then the defense has been one of the biggest issues.
And it's time and time again that it's not only that they don't have the horses out there, because to me, they don't have the talent they once did on defense, and that's half the battle, but they're not executed. They're not creating plays. They're not creating turnovers. Yeah, that Saints game was great. What has Anthony Nelson done since that game? And I know he's a reserve edge, but we keep re-signing him for a reason, to do more than get 2 sacks against the Saints. That Saints game was the last time Anthony Nelson and Logan Hall even registered a combined half a sack. And I know people could say what they want on these guys, but right now with the Hassan Reddick injury and more, these guys are snap eaters, right? So you need more production from somewhere, and they can't find it anywhere. You're not finding it at linebacker 2 in the
JPP,
middle. Yeah, and that's
Anthony Walker.
and the JPP thing is kind of sadly what I was going to allude to. And it's not a knock on JPP to say sadly, but when you're relying on a 37-year-old guy to kind of come in here who hasn't played in 2 seasons at this point to try and fire up your locker room, that's a little bit of a concern. Now, if anybody could do it, it's going to be JPP. And Tom Brady spoke on what JPP did the year we won the Super Bowl to turn things around in the locker room when the Bucs were facing tough times against Atlanta. Maybe he could do that again, and maybe he'll hold guys accountable, right? I mean, the Tyler Shuck play a couple weeks back when you had Vita Vea, Anthony Nelson, Logan Hall just missed a sack, and then the week before that when we barely beat Arizona, you had 3 defenders missing tackles. When you got multiple instances where not 1, not 2, but 3 guys are whiffing on the same play, that might tell me you need a little boot to the butt. And JPP might go in there and give you some boots to the butts, and you might be seeing some of these guys wake up a little bit if JPP gets to have his way in the locker room, like he should, because that's why you brought him in at this point, is to be not only a player, but to help coach these guys up, which they shouldn't need, but apparently they do, because that's why you signed Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, and kind of look at it, I find it hard to believe that outside, and I don't even blame them, but like Michael Jordan and Dan Feeney are who they are. They're limited. They are third string guards, practice squad guys. Like that's just what they are at this point in the league. And Emeka and Tez, they're younger guys. They're rookies. I don't feel like there's issues really coming from the offensive side of the ball. If you want to look at someone, maybe say Sean Tucker, because of his lack of usage, might be a little upset with how things. Rashad White, he's out of here after this end of the season. If you look on the defense, it's more. There's other guys who you can point to. Logan Hall, final year of his deal, he knows he's not coming back. Hassan Reddick, obviously on a 1-year deal, no really allegiance to Tampa Bay. Same thing with Kendall Vildor. I'm not saying these guys are like checking out, and then obviously Parrish and Morrison rookies, whatever. Same thing with Roberts. I'm not saying these guys are checking out because contracts are up and they might not be here next year or whatnot. But I will say that they're guys who haven't, and outside of Logan Hall, haven't been here the last couple seasons through these slumps and haven't witnessed. And these are some guys that you're relying on, right? That you take a look at Feeney and Jordan, and they've pretty much only known losing teams. So like at this point, it's like just go through the daily grind and just get through the rest of the season. And then you're in a slump and you're like, oh, just like everywhere else I've freaking been, So maybe I don't know, Hassan Reddick hasn't had a productive season, so he's probably in his head as it is already. So, I don't know if those are the issues. And, they say it's one guy every week not doing it. And certainly you can look at the offensive line in the interior. And I mean, you can throw Graham Barton in that mix and say, okay, yeah, you can see those one guys every week along the interior, not holding up protection for Baker, not opening up holes in the run game. And then you can see, obviously, the front 4 pass rush isn't working. Logan Hall and Hassan Reddick, you guys are part of that. And there's been mistakes by Morrison and Parrish and obviously Vildor now. So it's like, is that where the issues are coming from? Because if that's where the issues are coming from, I'm okay with that. If the issues are stemming from guys who have been here and been around, and especially the last 2 seasons, I think that becomes a bigger problem, Tones.
Couldn't agree more. And a couple of guys you hit the nail on the head on. Kendall Vildor. And I thought he actually played pretty good before that gap too. I think he stepped in, and we're asking him to do more than he should too, right? I mean, he's never been more than a role corner, and you drafted a guy like Benjamin Morrison in round 2. And I know now the kind of excuses, he might not have been ready health-wise. Well, he registered a full week of practice and he didn't play. So that was a little puzzling. And then you kind of thrust Vildor into a more elevated role. And again, I thought he played pretty good before that last one. And again, yeah, he should have sunk to the sticks. But could you blame him with Bijan looming in the flat? He just let up the play before. Kendall Vildor just got juked out for a 14-yard underneath route to Kyle Pitts.
Right.
So I will say that's where I do blame coaching, right? Because you just saw that happen for 14 yards, and now they only need 14 more. And, you're putting Vilder out in that island again type of thing where you should know where, hey, mentally, this guy just got gashed by the underneath route. That might happen again. Nope, they trot him back out there. And Hassan Reddick, as disappointing as he's been in the sack category, hurries category, pressure, even just staying on the field, it still amazes me how much better a pass rush seems to be, which isn't saying much. But when Reddick is getting after the quarterback or even just on the field, it seems like some of these guys start playing with a little more pizzazz and a little more pop and a little more oomph to try and get after the quarterback. So it's one of those things where it's amazing because Reddick hasn't really been there stat-wise, but if you truly watch Bucs games, the pass rush is a lot better with Reddick on the field. So maybe
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's going to bring that. He brings that juice and that respect. And even if he's not having a good season, he still brings enough that definitely if I'm Yaya Diaby or Braswell or Nelson, I'm a little bit more juiced that I got Reddick out there across from me because, they're going to give him a little extra attention. Probably not as much as in his younger years, but the problem, Tones, is it hasn't seemed to really matter. No. Like you can see they've got a little more juice, but they're not affecting the game the way they should be.
Not affecting.
That's a big problem.
Yeah, not affecting and that's one of Light's indictments this far is drafting edge rushers. It seems like they're not gravitating to their roles, right? Braswell, you expected a little jump, and I will say he's had a play here and there the past 2 games. At least 2 weeks ago, he got a sack. Last week, he forced an intentional grounding, I believe. So he's playing a little better, but you used a high-round pick on him to do a heck of a lot more to be able to rotate and get a play once every 4 or 5 games. Same with Yaya Diaby, and he's better than Braswell. I'm not putting him in the same category, but you kind of thought he'd be thriving a little more by now, excelling a little more by now, and he's just not getting to the quarterback even as much as he once did. At the beginning of the year, you've seen him against Seattle, against Buffalo, against the Rams, at least get to the quarterback. Past couple of weeks, he hasn't even done that, and the athleticism's there. Yeah. So you need to, and I said it earlier, I think at this point, JC, Bucs fans too, and maybe coaches are putting too much stock into these guys. Are saying, hey, Yaya is a better player than he is. Hey, Braswell is a better player than he is. I truly don't think
anyone said that about Braswell.
Yeah, well, drafted higher than he should have been.
Yeah, definitely. I hated that pick. I was never a fan of Braswell. I hated the pick. I wanted Marshawn Eland. Obviously, that didn't work out for the Cowboys either. RIP. But I think what Yaya's done this season is probably played his way into potential contract extension into if you want to stick around franchise tag situation, like you need to go out and ball out next year. Because I don't think he's earned an extension at this point. Certainly not a one that you would pay him before free agency. At this point, he's let's see what you can get type of guy. But I also think that's where Light has struggled too. And you said it's an indictment on him. And we'll go to the classic GM speak. Well, they're not re-signing him for a reason. But sometimes it's just the reason is they don't want to re-sign him. They want to allocate money elsewhere or, XYZ. It doesn't matter. But like Light's so afraid to take those chances and go spend big money because he was burned, by not Baker Mayfield, Chris Baker, and all those other guys. I think, back in the day, he won't spend money on those big ticket items. And that's what this defense has desperately needed over the last 5 years is that big ticket edge rusher. Pretty much since Shaq Barrett went down with what is it, Achilles or ACL? They've needed one since then. He was never the same after that. They've needed one since then, and they haven't found it. And to be honest with you, I don't really trust Light to find one in the draft, and maybe I don't trust the staff to develop them. I don't. Maybe it's that George Edwards hasn't been great. The guy before, I forget his name, who was there. He hasn't been great.
Casey Rogers.
Yeah, Casey Rogers. Well, Casey Rogers is more the defensive line coach. There was an outside linebackers coach in between Edwards and.
Oh yeah, Caldwell, right?
No, he's middle linebackers.
And we'll think of it.
We'll think of it. But yeah, I just think I think maybe it's an indictment on coaching at this point that they can't get their edge rushers to work or that front four to get after the quarterback. I don't know what else to do. You got Vita frickin' Vea.
And do you think part of the problem too, JC, is potentially like yeah, I know Light's been burned by some of these free agents in years past, but we haven't really tried to sign like the second contract guy who's in year 5 or year 6. Whenever we take these chances, Chris Baker, he was getting older, right? Anthony Walker getting older, Reddick getting older. It's like we're signing Akeem Hicks when we signed him, he was getting older, right? So
you're talking about the guys who have shown like glimpses but haven't put it out, like the Deo out of Yingbos who signed with.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, that didn't work out for the Bears, but those types of guys coming into Joseph Aside, Joseph Aweo, whatever, all those guys.
Kind of like when we brought in Shaq Barrett, and he wasn't even as productive as some of those other guys, right? Yeah. But maybe sign a guy who's up arrow is up instead of, all right, this is a gamble, right? Like a Reddick, everybody knew was a gamble. Anthony Walker, Dolphins fans said he looked old last year.
Van Ginkel was the guy 2 years ago, Tones, and they didn't go after him. Andrew Van Ginkel was, I don't know how he's been doing in Minnesota, but when they signed him, his first year there, he was balling out. And Michael Hawk, who signed with Buffalo, his season's over too. So I guess I'm not making great examples right now. But
the Cardinals defender who they signed from the Eagles,
yes,
Sweat, he's having a pretty good year. If you sign him, you're on the up and up. So, and I'm not saying you necessarily don't sign veterans or that type, but it seems like he just has a type and keeps going back to the well on that type. And you can't really remember the last time that's paid off, that, you went to the veteran well, and it hasn't really paid off much in free agency.
2 body types that they really only look at, like the Shaq Barrett, Hassan Reddick, David Walker, type body type. And then the Yaya Diaby, Anthony Nelson, Christian Braswell type, those big, like clubbing, heavy guys who got some athleticism but are going to kind of pound you down, and then those smaller, twitchier, quick guys. And like those are 2 hard guys to hit on, especially when you're bringing in rookies. I don't know. And you could say that, yeah, they brought in David Walker, drafted him, but like to put your eggs in a David Walker, Hassan Reddick basket when there was more to be needed. Just they should have made the move for Owafe Ode from Baltimore. The Chargers made that move. He's been really good for them, but who knows? But that's part of the issue, right? And that's part of the issue why I think at times, and we'll get into this, that the defense doesn't operate the way that it should. The corners can't be as aggressive as they want to be. At its prime, this is a 4-man front with exotic blitzing, a press man coverage corner scheme, that will play zone when they're doing their exotic blitzes and stuff like that. Like this is what this team is. That's when they excel. And Todd hasn't had that personnel since like the Super Bowl year, and even then, you're dealing with guys like SMB and a young Dean and a young, so young Carlton Davis kind of just settling into their starting roles. So like, and we just talked about the mistakes. Like, are you in this fire Todd Bowles camp no matter what? Are you in this, he's overcome a lot the last couple of years with injuries. It comes down to players. You can coach till you're blue in the face. We know what's going on. Does he have the right players? Is that more of a GM, front office indictment? Where's your whole stance on this? If he pulls it out of his ass and they win the next 3 games, and then let's say dual scenario, they win the next 3 games and they win their first playoff, losing the divisional, they get swept, or they get knocked out the first round, or they don't win. What is your thoughts on Todd Bowles in a microcosm of what's going on right now with everyone calling for his job?
And let's take a little walk down Todd Bowles' lane here in his tenure with the Buccaneers and kind of just give a glimpse if people are giving him the right chance, a fair chance, if that's how you want to say it. 2022. Bruce Arians on the way out. Todd Bowles got the team in the springtime, which is very rare itself. Tom Brady obviously was not Tom Brady all year, and now we know why.
Mind you, could not make any coaching staff changes because of the time and free agency, and pretty much the draft was already prepped for it happening in April. So there was no time for him to really make any changes to draft prep or staff or free agency plan.
So 2022, and he still made the playoffs, although they were under 500. They did, throw away the last game of the season. All in all, not really Todd Bowles' fault, right? As you alluded to, couldn't make staff changes, couldn't bring in free agents, couldn't really do much Tom Brady wasn't the
Gisele's
same.
getting banged by a jiu-jitsu teacher. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, exactly. You got Tom Brady going to Robert Kraft's birthday like 2 days before. And I'm not blaming Brady, right? But it was just not a typical Brady type season, and Gisele's to blame there. So that's 2022. 2023, the Bucs are the biggest dead cap. Yeah, money out the door. Dead cap hit after dead cap hit. You cut guys like Akeem Hicks, costing you money. Brady retires, that's costing you money. I know Baker panned out, but when you brought him in, there's a reason why he was $4 million, and there's a reason why a lot of other QBs got signed before him. Let's not forget, 2023, the Buccaneers were projected to finish bottom 3 team in the National Football League. They ended up winning. They ended up making the playoffs. They ended up winning a playoff game. Very successful.
Prove their record.
Yep. So there you go. 2023 success for Todd Bowles. 2024 built off that success. Had a great run in the middle of the year. And then you stall out against a hot and upcoming Commanders team who eventually proved they could go on a run in the playoffs. But the Bucs should have won that game, right? If it wasn't for a Graham Barton false start or a Baker Mayfield to McMillan fumble or a couple of other things.
The snap. Snap over the head, too, I think. Was that game?
Yep, snap over the head. So bada bing, bada boom, the Bucs eliminated themselves in theory, and they could have easily moved on in 2024. So now you throw that out the window a little bit. You go, they didn't take a step up, but they didn't take a step back. Now 2025 is the year you expect them to really propel. And that's where, yep. And that's where the biggest indictment on Todd Bowles is at this point, JC. This is the first year where we haven't at least improved to this point. But there's 3 weeks left, and there's the playoffs left. So to me, if the Bucs win the NFC South, and you at least win one playoff game, I think Todd Bowles sticks around, and I think he's deserved to stick around. And I'm honestly pretty tired of the people saying that it's all Bowles' fault. Offense, he's on his 4th offensive coordinator in 4 seasons. And, you know, look at all the guys he's getting promoted. Somerville is now the Cal offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen got a head coaching job. Dave Canales got a head coaching job. Grizzard, he's holding his own, but it's a work in progress. When people asked for special teams change, he hired the wrong guy, Thomas McGahee, but he did make a change with Keith Armstrong there. Defensively, people were tired of Bowles' scheme last year. He tried to change things up. He brought in Strong as a D-line coach. Out went Casey Rogers. So Bowles has listened to the fans that, hey, we need to make these changes on the staff. He did that special teams. He did that with defense, and he's really had no choice with offense. And again, we don't have the dogs is my biggest takeaway, JC. The Bucs on defense just don't have the dogs to make the plays, and that's where I think the fans overrate the Bucs a little bit and don't understand that their defense isn't built like a top defense contender. It's just not. Whether you like it or not, it's just not.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of good points there. And, you know, you forgot about the injuries this year too with Todd, but I think you're right on a lot of points there. You know, I'm a Todd Bowles enthusiast. I know what he's gone through. I think what hurts him a lot too is that he's a fired head coach already.
Right.
So people are automatically going to just look back. And I think he's taken steps to improve his in-game management. Obviously, there's been struggles there. He's admitted to those struggles. He's done a good job. And I think he's done a better job. I mean, he went for 4th down 7 times in a game. You know, so like I think,
and that's funny too, JC. Just a year or two ago, you have fans saying he needs to be more aggressive. Needs to be more aggressive.
Timeouts, and like we haven't heard timeout at all this season. You know, so like the offensive coordinators too, the continuity on that side of the ball and the staff, like he's been dealt. Plus, he just got an extension at the beginning of this year, so I think they'd have to really like lose the next 3 games or lose 2 games, and I think they'd have to lose the next 3 games essentially.
To me, the only way he goes
is to win this division with just 1 win against the Panthers this weekend. They can, as long as the Falcons lose and the Saints lose to the Panthers lose to the Seahawks, the Bucs can still win as long as they handle their business this week. But if they don't and they're 1 and done, like maybe you make a change, but you knew the risks. After you lost Dave Canales, you knew the risks of having a defensive-minded head coach. You knew the risk. Then you lose Liam Cohen. You know the risk, and you still gave him a contract extension, knowing the risks. that if Grizzard pans out, you're finding another one in 5 years, the 5th offense coordinator. You knew the risks when you did that. So I think that's like a big part of it too. Like I don't see them just moving on unless things go disastrously bad over the next 3 games and potentially in the postseason. But I think he does get too much of the blame at a lot of the times. At the end of the day, players play. This team has not stopped responding to him. But some of those names I mentioned, maybe kind of on the way out, maybe checking out, and maybe not kind of as invested in, at least as invested in this season. With some of the names I said who are still on the team and have been through it, maybe they're not as invested in this season. Because maybe they got one foot out the door or whatnot. I think that plays a part to it, and just execution. Players got to execute. That was a great play call on that 4th down. It was a great play call. Wasn't executed. You can't blame Todd for lack of execution, and he came out and let his players hear about it. So we'll see how that all plays out. Before we jump out of here, let's talk about this Panthers game a little bit. What scares you the most? Because when you look at the Panthers, their offense hasn't been great this season. Like, it's not a good offense. They've only won, almost all of their games that they've won outside of their blowout over the Falcons in week 3 have been won by, I want to say 3 points or less. Yeah. I mean, their win over the Dolphins, 27-24. Their win over the Cowboys, 30-27. Win over the Jets was 13-6, so 6 points. Packers was 16-13. Falcons, their second win over them was 30-27. They beat the Rams last week, 31-28. So it's not like they're blowing teams out. They've only scored 30 points once. They're near the bottom in scoring offense and third down offense. They're not great. 20th. Red zone scoring offense, they're 26th. Red zone offense, they're not good. So what makes you nervous about this offense for the Buccaneers this week? Isn't it more just the Bucs defense?
What scares me, JC, is the Bucs. The Bucs scare me more than anything that the Panthers could bring to the table, and that's not a knock on them. I had them finishing in second this year. Shout out to Dave Canales for being a pretty dang good head coach. To me, that roster isn't all that talented. I say it all the time, JC. The Panthers are the most consistently inconsistent team in the National Football League. They could beat any team. They almost proved that by beating the Packers and Rams, and they could lose to any team, and they proved that by losing twice to the Saints, right? So this is a team where 1 week you see them and you're like, boy, they are really good. Then 1 week you see them and it's like, how the heck are they tied for first? So I think the Bucs' biggest fear is the Bucs can't beat the Bucs like they've done the past 2 weeks, right? You play cleaner football, you patch up your mistakes, and you don't have brain farts. Like, this is where you could blame coaching. Benjamin Morrison not being active instead of Kendall Velder on a play like that, or Elijah Simmons not being active and the running defense hasn't been as good. That's where you could blame coaching. What you can't blame coaching on is the Bucs beating the Bucs, not recovering a couple fumbles, and letting the Panthers
bad penalties.
You can't let the Panthers have those bad penalties, right? Because Bryce Young and Temp McMillan, they've proved they're 4th down cats. So if you give them a chance, Dave Canales will go for it on 4th down, and that's where the Panthers hurt you the most. You got to stick your clamps in the ground. When you get 2nd and long or 3rd and long, you can't let them get 10 to 15 yards. You force a 4th and long, then you get good field position. The next thing you know, you tack on. And the Panthers are a very beatable team. It's when you keep leaving him around, let him hang in the game, the Panthers will sneak up with that opportunity and take you up on that. So the Bucs have to not beat the Bucs. That's what I'm most scared about. Nothing against Carolina. I'm not really afraid of anything on their team.
There's one guy.
Temp McMillan, are you afraid of?
No, God, no. In another game against another team, yes. But there's only one guy who scares me if I'm a Bucs fan when I'm playing the Panthers on that team, because he's a Buck killer every single time.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle.
Nope. He's been killing the Bucs for seasons now, man. You're getting closer though.
Chuba.
No. He's good for an anytime touchdown anytime he plays the Bucs.
Tommy Trumbull. Yeah, and he just got in. Yeah, and
Tommy
out of
Trumbull against those linebackers. Good luck. Take him for the anytime touchdown, people.
Yeah, and I think the Bucs got him his payday this offseason when he got extended, right? Because The
Those
fact
last couple
is,
games of the season.
that's all it is. And you hit the nail on the head, JC. As much as you can name Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle, Ted McMillan, who are all pretty cute players, that's Bucs beating the Bucs, letting a guy like Tommy Tremble have all this success against him, right? So
Right.
you have to fix the little stupid mistakes that continually keep other teams in the game. The last couple of weeks, even Arizona was right in that game. You got to be able to put an inferior opponent away. I know the records are the same. Let's be honest, Carolina's inferior. Let's see that killer instinct this week. Don't let the Bucs beat the Bucs, and I think it's a great Sunday in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think so too. This game is a game I actually had them losing coming into the season because I think Carolina is going to steal one, but I also had them capturing the division against the Falcons, which coincidentally enough, they could have done if they just beat the Saints the week before and beat the Falcons, and my prediction would have came true. However, there's a lot at stake at this game, and if they're going to lose one now to the Panthers, I think it's the one at home where they're resting people because they've already got the division locked up. I don't think this is a situation where I don't think they can afford to lose this game. Not just as like you can't afford to lose this game, but as like the season's over if they lose this game. I think people start really checking out. If you can't beat the Panthers this week, especially with most of your offense back, you're obviously missing the guards, and I've talked about how big of an issue that has been. But if you can't, I think this is a time where their people just check out, and if they're injured, I'm just shutting it down. Like I'm not.
Well, and JC, to piggyback off your point, the Bucs are like a cat. Yeah, you get 9 lives, but what happens on that 9th life? You don't get a 10th. The Bucs kind of have had that couple of lives now, and you lose this game.
Well, the last 3 years, I'm sure they're on live 9 between the last 3 years and trying to back into the NFC South. Like, I don't know if they have an extra life to give after these last 2 weeks.
And I just don't think you could lose you lose 3 divisional games in a row to 500 or less teams.
That's bad.
That's
even firing. I think you're fired then, actually.
Right.
That's when you start talking about it.
That's when you start talking about it, JC. And I think I agree with you. That's to the point of there's almost no return, right? Not to sound like that guy, but hey, yeah, we're still mathematically alive if you lose to Carolina. But how demoralized it? I mean, you saw Tristan Wirfs after
and
the game.
If the team's not going to respond to that, like public written, it's on. We've done enough we can as coaches. It's on the players. Like if they don't respond to that with a win, then maybe I'm wrong, and maybe what I'm being told is a lie, and maybe he's really lost the locker room if they cannot respond after Thursday night. If they cannot respond after Thursday night, the mental toughness of this team, and not everybody, relax, keyboard warriors, but the mental toughness of this team as a collective is a hell of a lot weaker than I thought it was, and it's already showed cracks in its armor.
That couldn't be more true. And I think one thing we're missing, JC, and not to kind of get too over resilient on this fact, but you don't really have that mouthpiece on the team on the defensive side of the ball. Levante's a heck of a leader, but his voice isn't what it once was, right? That's why I think a JPP could make such a big difference this Sunday, kind of be that rah-rah guy. Yo, let's get it. As good as Antoine Winfield is, as good as Jamel Dean are, they're not like leader guys in terms of vocal.
They don't really have any guy on the defense that's really jarring and stuff like that.
And I think that's
nice
too, right? Like
they got a bunch of Gerald McCoys on the defense, bro.
Oh.
They don't got no Warren Sapps out there. They don't got no dogs who are like, and they don't have anyone talking trash like that. And like that was KJ Britt was the one that would talk trash a lot, but obviously he's played it. Yeah. They don't have. I mean, they've got some guys who will talk, but they don't got guys who are like.
And I think that's part of the problem too, JC, the lack of accountability without those leaders, right? Say me and you are working on a job together and it costs me maybe my livelihood. I'm going to go up to you and be like, what the hell, bro? Like, let's get it together right now. You're not seeing that. A guy makes a bad play. Oh, it's okay. Go get it next time. No, get on their butt and tell them you do it right the next time, or I'm not going to play cards with you come Thursday night or whatever the case might be, right?
I know he's just taking pride in your work, and everyone. It's the mantra, Bill Belichick's mantra: do your job. Everyone's just got to do their job, and that's the problem. especially on the defensive side, is people haven't been doing the job, and it's been other people every week. So they've got to figure that out. They've got to not beat themselves. They got to convert on third down. We know all those things because they've all been things that have been said for weeks now. I think the Bucs do get this done. I don't have a score prediction right now. That'll be out all over at Peter over at Bucs game day, probably Saturday. It'll be out, but I think the Bucs win this in a close one. I don't know. You got a score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chase McLaughlin continuing his clutch gene for this Buccaneers team. And by the way, remember all the Twitter fans, well, we might have to look into him after week 3. Yeah, he clearly put that behind him. But I'm going with 3 or 4 field goals off the leg of Chase the Great himself. I'm going with 26-17. Tampa wins an ugly game, but a well-fought victory, and the defense shows a lot of signs of improvement. I hope so, at least for the Bucs' sake. 26-17, Bryce Young makes a couple mistakes, and the Bucs win by 9.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say McLaughlin should have a good game. That's one thing where this Panthers team has been good, is pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. They got Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, and some other guys, some of their young guys, Prince of Human Alien, and Nick Scourton over there doing some good jobs for them, 2 edge rushers they drafted. Look at that. They doubled up on edge rushers just like the Falcons, and they're both doing pretty good this season.
Go wonder, right? Well, and as great as the Igbuka pick's been, a lot of people mocked what 2 positions, JC? Middle linebacker.
John Campbell's having a pretty good season.
Yeah, an edge rusher.
And I think Ezraku's been having a pretty good – his pressure rate's been up over the last –
And I love Igbuka, right? I'm not saying I hate that Igbuka's
on the team.
But when you look at it, you had needs, and you didn't draft him that high. So that's all for all the blame Bowles people. And I love Jason Light, but let's look at that. You had a lot more needs than wide receiver, and you didn't use a first-round pick on a need. So,
yeah. So, we'll see what they do this draft. We'll see what they do this free agency. I think however they finish in the draft will open up a lot of things, and there might be a lot of moving and shaking. Maybe some guys are no longer on this team, some surprise cuts or surprise trades after this. And obviously you got Jamel Dean to worry about too. And I think his futures with the Bucs is certainly tied into Todd Bowles' future here as well. So we'll see how that all plays out going forward. But Bucs got a must win, not necessarily a must win. It's not like they can still win the division without it, but this, for all intents and purposes, it's a must freaking win. You can't lose 3 straight divisional games in a row, and you've got to go in here and handle your business, knowing that, hey, we win this week, we win next week. We can take a breather and let some guys get a little healthy. So
for the morals and the mentals, you need this win.
Morals and mentals, you need this win. A Bucs Nation needs this win too. All right, so go ahead. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you got cooking up. You guys got a couple shows a week going on over there. And I know it's bowl season, it's playoff season. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of stuff going over there, including your picks. So talk to the people. What do you got going on?
Yeah, we're heating up at the Buccaneers. Once again, truly do appreciate giving the Buccaneers a platform here on the Pirate Parlay, one of my favorite shows. So always an honor to be on. We actually have a show tonight, time to be announced, because I'm on with JC, so I'm not going to rush and do another show, but keep up with us. A couple nights ago, we had our Bowl Blitz, where we do a deep dive into all college football games, the coaching carousel. Joey has Toe in the Line, which is a 15 to 20 minute NFL quick show every week, gives you a quick little preview, bets of the week. So we've been morphing and doing things for the people, keeping everybody involved with not just the Buccaneers, but the world of college football, the world of NFL, the world of gambling, and so much more. And if you do like to gamble, you might want to listen to us. We're about plus $428 on the season overall, and that's if you take everything in a $20 bet increment. So we've been doing pretty good over there, and then we talk fantasy football as well. I just want to say 2 things quick. Please join us tonight on the Buccaneers, probably about 7 o'clock Eastern, live on our YouTube. We do appreciate that. Couple of personal notes. Pops text into the program, says tell JC wishing him and his family a healthy, safe, and great Christmas. He's a great man. And I do want to give a quick shout out.
Pops. Appreciate you.
Yeah, just quickly a shout out to the McKittrick family, my brother-in-law's family, dealing with just a tragic loss right now. And, that's one of the things with the holiday season. You got to be appreciative of the people. And JC, I appreciate you and the great people of Bucs Nation for Propel. And so quick thoughts and prayers with the McKittricks. Keep up with me at Tampa Tones. Keep up with us at the Buccaneers podcast. JC's always on. We're doing our 12 Days of Bucksmith giveaways right now, too, over on Twitter. You could win some pretty cool stuff. So come check us out. Come hang out with us and have a good holiday season.
He's being modest. There's some cool stuff there. He's got a Mike All-Star Ring of Honor for tonight. So make sure you guys are tuning in, checking that out for sure, because they're doing some great stuff over there. And yeah, I'm always popping up over there here and there. You never know. Maybe you'll see me twice tonight. Who knows? Like Tones, I'll pop in. I never pop in with my face though, because I'm too lazy to come back into my office.
Well, it's fitting you get 2 Royal Rumble entrants tonight, I guess, with the Royal Rumble shirt on.
Liv spotted it right away.
She's awesome. So I appreciate the support from her and everybody too. Just truly blessed.
Yeah, check out the Buccaneers. They're always doing good stuff. You guys know where to find me. I'm over at the Peter Plank. I got a couple things published over there. I'm over at Bucs Game Day, obviously, right here on the Sick Podcast. Next week, we'll either do Tuesday or Friday. I don't know. If they lose, we'll definitely do Tuesday because we're going to have some shit to talk about. If they win, maybe we'll do Friday. I don't know. It depends on how much ramping and stuff I have left to do prior to Christmas, how much running around I have to do because we're going to take Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, obviously. Enjoy the time with your family and friends, and everyone celebrate Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah right now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. So appreciate awesome all of you. My friends celebrating Kwanzaa, so appreciate you, and all of my friends from Latin America. Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
So that's going to do it here for Pirate Parlay, the Sick Podcast, for me and Tones, for everyone on the Sick Podcast Network and our team behind the scenes there. Shane, my producer. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to all of you. We'll touch base next week, either with a raging show where we're going off and having a lot of meltdowns on Tuesday, or a more mellow show and, maybe a trip down to Miami and not for boats and hoes like Odell Beckham went, but a trip to go against the Tua-less Dolphins. There's so much we could have got into. Tua, Anthony Walker's back. Tua, there's a bunch of stuff. We'll catch us on the next episode. We're out of here. Peace. Ow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.